Great stuff. Okay, thanks, Jeff. So our first speaker this afternoon is Themis. So he's going to be presenting some of his work on the economic evaluation of outdoor recreation in Northern Ireland. So I'll hand over to Themis. So I'll let you, if you want to share your screen, Themis, and just wave your arms or shout and scream if you've got any problems. I'll try my best to help out.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah, for me, great stuff.
Okay, so this is the second study of an economic evaluation of outdoor recreation in Northern Ireland. The first one was conducted for 2011 data. It is financed by SPARC Northern Ireland, and you can find a link here for the full report if you're interested to read it. The study focuses on outdoor activities that make use of the natural environment and do not require a dedicated pitch or course to enable participation. For this reason, a major sport activity such as golf is excluded from the study, so it is important to remember. The study uses 2017 data, and because of that, it is consistent with. It is also consistent with 2011, with the 2011 study, and we make some comparisons between the two. The methodology used is the National Income Accounting methodology, the accounting framework. The link has some details if you are interested to read about this. This is the third chapter of the Handbook of Sport Economics, in the link. The methodology is based on the division of the sport outdoor sectors into 7 smaller sectors, which includes consumer spending, commercial outdoors recreation. An example is equipment manufacturers and retailers. Commercial non-outdoor recreation, which is economic agents that provide the requirements for the production of outdoor services and goods. So this sector links outdoor recreation to the economy in general, and it is often represented in sport accounts from the indirect multiplier. Then we have the voluntary sector, which mainly is the clubs, local government, central government, and outside the area trade. The key indicators, the key results of the study are in this slide. We found that the number of commercial operators is 563, representing an increase of 48%. Consumer spending is 192 million, representing an increase since 2011 of 40%. This is an increase in real prices, constant prices, so there is no inflation in this increase. Employment grew by 36% to 4,800 full-time equivalents, and within it, employment in the voluntary sector increased by 60% to 1,640 full-time equivalents. It is interesting to compare these very big increases in employment with the increase in gross value added. Gross value added is something equivalent to gross domestic product. So roughly it is the sum of profits and wages. And this increased in this period by 24% to 131.3 million. Finally, the volunteers, unpaid labor, were estimated to be 815 full-time equivalents. So it is interesting when we present these percentages to note that these increases start from a GBA increase of 24%, and then it increases further to 36% in employment and further to 60% in voluntary sector employment. Now, in sport economics, when you see this pattern, it means that if you deal with a sector, that it is very efficient in generating employment. So you invest on the sector as represented by the GBA, but you get more in terms of employment. And it also shows that this is driven by the heart of the outdoor recreation, which is voluntary sector. So the importance of this is that investing in outdoor recreation can be used as a policy tool to increase employment, firstly. Also, it promotes the sector, the characteristics of the sector, promotes regional convergence within the UK and country convergence within the EU. As such, investing in outdoor recreation can be very useful in the case of recession and can also be used as a policy tool if sustainability is at the core of your objectives. I think that the reason that this happens is a combination of the general characteristics of the sports economy, which is very employment intensive, and the specific characteristics of the Northern Ireland economy, which is based on a network of small operators that do not require a very high surplus to exist. And practically all the surpluses that are generated are recycled immediately in investing. So this, I think, creates this picture, which is very, very positive for economic growth. In this pie chart, we have the employment distribution. You can see that the main areas where employment is generated is outdoor centers and the commercial non-outdoor recreational sector. The first sector obviously is very important and prominent in Northern Ireland. The second sector is how the outdoor recreation connects to the rest of the economy. Important sectors also are the local government at 9% and bicycles at 10%. In a more general sense, you can see the GBA distribution. Again, you can see that we have three sectors that dominate the generation of GBA. This is the commercial sport. In this case, it is commercial outdoor sport, the voluntary sector, and the commercial non-sport, the commercial non-outdoor sport. Now, the last one has a share of 40%, almost 39%. The importance of this is that if you are a little bit familiar with input-output tables, what we're saying through this is that if you invest, say, 60 in outdoor recreation, you get 100. This is through a modeling of income and expenditure among the 7 categories of the methodology that I outlined before. So that means that on the first section, on the first round of transactions between the different sectors, you have an indirect multiplier of about 1.7. Now, when the financial year finishes and you don't have only the first transactions, but all the transactions that follow, this multiplier is likely to increase to around 2. So from 1.7, you're likely to go to 2. This is something that is predicted from the study, that you have an indirect multiplier approximately 2 and can be tested. So this is a way to see the validity of this argument. We'll see that later. This is the outdoor recreation is heavily based on participation, obviously. So from the continuous household survey of Northern Ireland, we try to find what are the activities which drive this sector. And there was one activity which showed a significant increase from 2011 to 2017, which was walking for recreation. Its participation rate increased from 36% in 2011 to 2017. So something that happens almost daily. It was the main driving force in the increases in the economic indicators in Northern Ireland. Another activity at a low level, but showing a very high increase in its own terms, is yachting and sailing, which increased from less than 0.5% to 1%. This is a very small, this is a doubling of participation, but the economic significance of yachting and sailing is so high that it is important to underline it. So this is the participation pattern. And finally, this is the consumer spending pattern. The consumption, as I mentioned before, is 192 million. But it is more interesting to see how this changed from 2011 to 2017. So the main categories that really increased a lot include open air recreation equipment, 109%, boats at 70%, other major durables at 102%, and publications at 86%. Most of these categories are very, very heavily influenced by participation. So the participation changes are somehow consistent with what happened in the consumer spending. Finally, as concluding points, I want to underline that the Northern Ireland market has a plethora of small-sized firms, which are often owned by enthusiasts. This creates the conditions for a very effective absorption of any public funds. Nothing seems to be wasted, with a significant group of volunteers contributing to further growth. This situation, together with the employment intensity of the sport industry, creates new business opportunities. A lot of firms were created from this process, such as chain reaction cycles, and we have a very high generation of employment, sustainability, and convergence within the United Kingdom. Finally, I have a table which verifies my previous argument. This is the latest, or the first published Northern Ireland product type 1 multipliers. These are experimental input-output tables for the nation. And they are very general, so you cannot really identify sport. But sport is within category R, which is highlighted at the bottom, arts, entertainment, and recreation. And you can see that the GBA multiplier in the experimental statistics of Northern Ireland is 2.116. And compare this with construction, which is 1.723, which it is quite unusual that you have an entertainment or sport-based sector that gives you a type 1 multiplier higher, so higher than construction. That means that the argument that employment is very highly efficiently generated from the sector is valid, and it also shows that the sector itself is very, very well networked within the economy. Otherwise, you cannot reach this kind of multiplier. So it is also a verification to the argument that investing in outdoor recreation, in outdoor sport, is a good investment because it will generate employment and it will produce convergence and sustainability. And this is the final argument. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Themis. Very interesting talk there. Overview. Can I pass to the floor? Do we have any questions for Themis? I'll open up the chat box as well. Actually, I don't see anything in there at the moment. If you've got any questions, and if you want to speak, you'll need to unmute your microphone. Speak through.
Yeah, I'll go first then, if that's all right.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Themis, thanks for that, Themis. That was really interesting. One of your slides, you talked about cycling, bicycles being 10% of employment. I'm wondering what impact technology will have in that, and when you will see the throughput of things like e-bikes and assisted bikes, because clearly in the Peak District and South Yorkshire, we have a lot of hills or some very beautiful countryside. It's a little bit prohibitive for those that aren't particularly fit. So I could see that being the area that could really ramp up and potentially get us close to recreational walking. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think that there will be an economic impact which will be more than proportionate than the participational impact because of the added values of these bicycles. So the cost of these bicycles and the consumption is quite high. So it will definitely have an income. This has been discussed widely throughout Europe about whether or not new technology in the cycles, in the bicycles, can drive changes in the economics. I think it's quite positive. But other than my impression, I do not have data that go to this detail. Unfortunately, although it has been decided from Eurostat to highlight the e-cycling, this has not happened yet as far as I know. So data do not exist for the specific analysis. However, it is very, very important, and it is driven by participation in the older age groups, which also have more free time to practice sport in some cases. So I think it will be as important as changes in the working participation in driving future growth.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Themis.
Do you have any other questions for Themis at this point? I had a quick one on one of your previous points about the increasing investment in the outdoor recreation sector leading to increased employment. I just wondered if you foresee any increases in investment in the coming months to years, given the current situation we are with coronavirus. We're probably heading towards an economic recession at some point, I would imagine, or certainly difficulties. And if there is, likely to be an increase in investment, is there something that we should be, potentially taking advantage of, sort of keeping ears to the ground, as it were?
Well, to foresee this is very hard under the current conditions. The reason that these figures appear so optimistic and so good is because of the networking of the economy. To have the networking in the sport economy at the outdoor level, you need to have networking of people. If you don't have outdoor sector. It is hard to be optimistic for the next 2 years. My prediction will be that the sector that will really boom will be indoor leisure and indoor sport. So indoor sport will develop in new directions and will totally change the appearance of the market. But it will be 2 hard years for outdoor recreation and outdoor sport in particular. Cycling may be an area where it is sustained, but the competitive element of it will be very depressed.
Great stuff.
That's all what I think.
Thank you, Thomas. Any other questions? Okay, great stuff. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Themis. What we'll do is we'll just hand over very quickly to Tom. So, Themis, we'll just ask you just to briefly stop sharing your screen. So, thank you again for your presentation this afternoon.